for people that are going to be tuning in to watch this, welcome in to the channel.
Yep.
It's funny, people have been asking for this for a while, and I've kind of held it off because, Bill, you understand this. I like to try to keep it to the side, and you and I are going to have a talk about that maybe in the future. But for anyone that doesn't know, I got my uncle, Bill Ripken, who I'm gonna talk you up here, but you're going to deal with it for a second. Personally, I think he's one of the best in the game all over the years. He's almost been doing this now for 2 decades, analyzing the game of baseball. You were in the major leagues for 12 seasons? Am I getting this correct?
That's correct.
And again, I love Calvin. I love my family, but someone that teaches the game, there's not many better. Actually, for me, I think you are the top at teaching the game of baseball, Bill. So I appreciate you taking time. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. And look, I appreciate the intro, and I also appreciate you keeping me out of the mix until you get both feet in the pool and start doing things. But when we talk, I think what's pretty interesting is we have an awful lot in common, actually, me and you. Junior is the link, but it's amazing that when I came up into the big leagues and my senior year in high school, Cal's the rookie of the year. I get drafted and go away and play, and I'm playing in 1983. Now Cal's winning MVPs. And I can certainly feel that the pressures that I think were put upon us from the outside world, in a lot of cases, were pretty unfair to both of us. And I think the connection we have, we know in some cases we're treated probably overly too well because of Junior. And then in other cases, we're treated overly unfair in the opposite direction because of Junior. But I think it's important that we figure out what we can do, how we do it. And probably during this next 30 minutes, I'm going to quote Cal Sr. probably a few times. And when I'm going around, I'm traveling around talking to these tournament destinations and talking to the coaches and the parents. Senior told me a long time ago, he looked at Junior and he looked at me and says, "You ain't him. You can't do the things that he can do, but if you do the things you can do, you're going to find in most cases that's going to work its way out." And he wasn't wrong. A lot of parents kind of get set back by that when I initially say that. "Ooh, how could he say that?" Because he was real. And I think when we figure out who we are and figure out the things that we can do and we keep doing those things well, we're going to find out, as Senior said, it's going to work out in its own way.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that's the part of it too. And I'm actually at the end of this, Bill, I'm going to want you to, maybe I'll let you think about this for some memories. I know you got a lot of them, but you had the unique perspective then to be able to not only get to learn from one of the greatest minds and kind of shape what turned out to be the Oriole way for decades ago. And really when the Orioles were firing on all cylinders, but then you got to also, play with Calvin, play with Senior, and have Senior, all of you guys in the same spot. So I want to hear some memories there because that's the best way that he lives on through the teachings and he lives on through the memories. But
that's going to be an easy one.
Yeah, well, and I can't wait for that. But let's talk about expectations here then for a second, because the expectations right now for a certain Jackson Holliday, and it's got the connection with Cal Senior, right? Where Jackson Holliday, #1 prospect, dad, Matt Holliday, really, really good player. And people can argue he was one of the best players during his time in the bigs. He comes to Baltimore, and then he's wearing the #7 that hasn't been worn since Cal Senior back. And it was kind of the unofficial, not that it was ever retired, but no one wore it in Baltimore. And you talked about it perfectly. But can you touch on what you think of Jackson Holliday and also the pressures and expectations he had to deal with not only the legacy he was trying to live up with his family, but then also this other legacy that has been created with that #7.
Yeah, let's first just talk about Jackson Holliday, the talent, because I think when you're a 1-1, and you were pretty much a 1-1 across everybody's board in baseball. So if you'd asked the 30 teams, if you had the #1 pick, who would you have taken? I think he'd have been probably on 28, 29, maybe all of them. And that's a hard thing to do. So expectations, 1, are going to be carried with that. 2, the dude's 20. The dude went through the minor leagues and just tore it up. Every stop that he was actually at, he destroyed. Went out there, swung the bat, did the things he could do. I looked at the expectations of Jackson Holliday, to be truthful, out of spring training, where I sat, and I'm not in the room, but where I sat, I thought he did enough spring training to make that club. And who knows how this would have played out at the time. The way it played out, he came up a little bit later. It seemed to, maybe by his accounts too, the game seemed fast. He was a little bit overwhelmed maybe with everything that was going on, and he struggled a little bit. But I think what any professional would do, and once again, he's 20, but probably with the advice of his daddy, he goes to AAA, and he just started raking again. And I think he went down with the right mindset. Probably a week, probably into the demotion, he was probably a little bitter, and that's just me guessing. But then after that time was over, there's no reason to keep him down in the AAA. There were some things that happened up to big league level. A player got hurt, a player got traded. This is his time. And for me, I look at the expectations of Jackson Holliday. Like I said, he would have made my club out of spring training from where I sat. But he's playing every day from here on out. I've got to see what I have with this kid, because there's nothing that this kid needs to prove in the minor leagues for me at all. So my expectations are one thing. I think the expectations on him as a player over the years, I think, has gotten a little bit unfair. Let's go back to Calvin, as you call him. He was a highly touted prospect, never had the expectations thrust on him or this pressure put on him like that. Before that, Eddie Murray probably fell into the same category. I think I have to go back to maybe Ben McDonald, might have been one that started feeling a little pressure, 1-1. Then maybe after that, I think Matt Wieters comes to mind about being able to jump into this. Then, of course, Adley Rushman and moving forward. But everybody seemed to respond well. And I think when you're Jackson Holliday, if he just simplifies things and takes that AAA approach that he talked about yesterday, hitting the ball the other way, letting it travel a little bit, his talent's going to take over. And I don't think we're going to have any issues at all with one Jackson Holliday. But once again, it's those expectations and those outside pressures sometimes that we talked about a little bit, that's a little bit unfair, because here's just a kid who goes out and plays. He's 20 years old, and it's a tough gig going out there and banging against some of these guys. And there's no reason to think he can't pull it off. I think yesterday's grand slam on an 0-2 spinning nothing ball down the middle of the plate that he juiced, that's going to help with his kind of, I got a deep breath. I got one column out of the way up on the board. I know my average is looking a little bit ugly as I look up there, and fans from other cities are going to get on me about it. But all in all, I think that one swing should be able to have him take this huge deep breath, and we're just going to see his talent take over.
Yeah. And the other part too, Bill, and this is what I try to allude to people, when you're that young and you don't fail either, when you get to the big leagues, the first time you failed is at the big league level, and there's standing ovations. I was at that game in Baltimore when they had on Friday night his home debut, and everyone's standing up every single at bat. It's packed. And I remember actually me and Junior, we'll call him Junior then, because that's what you usually say.
Yep.
But we stand up and then we sit right back down. And people were texting me going, "Why'd you sit down?" I'm like, he's already got enough pressure.
Right.
He knows he's here, and people love that he's here. Now he's going to have to try to, settle in. And it felt like at that time, you could sense for the first time he felt a little bit more anxious. And it's hard to never fail in your life and get to the big leagues and fail, but it's necessary. But I'm glad you mentioned it. And he is a review away yesterday from having a 2-homer, 7-ribby game on top of it. But I think also, and I want to touch on this with the number 7 then for a minute, if you don't mind. I thought you answered it beautifully at the time when this whole situation rose. But I think what you're alluding to with the talent and the pedigree and the person that he is, it's a way for Senior's legacy to live on, and especially with a talented player like Jackson. Yeah,
look, I thought when Jackson got called up, and I think the Orioles handled this extremely well, very respectful, a lot of class. Certainly, I don't have a bat phone line directly to the Orioles, but Junior does. And they asked Junior what he thought about it. And Junior right away texted me. And I said, "Look, dude, I said, it's been a long time. Senior's number was never officially retired. I think out of respect, when we lost Senior, they decided to pull it back a little bit and put it high up on a shelf in the closet somewhere. But I think when Jackson came up and you have this talented kid, there's some number 7 in the history of the Holliday family, and they respectfully request to wear the number. Yes. And that's what I said to Junior. I go, dude, this is just going to give us another reason to talk about Senior. And one of the things that was really cool about that was Ben McDonald was calling the game, and I was up in New Jersey, and Ben texts me and says, hey, when you get 10 minutes, let me know. So I called Ben and we talk, and we go through the whole Senior thing again, and I tell the story to Ben, and it already made me feel good. So when you have that feeling and you can get to talk about some of those things that Senior was able to accomplish, because look, we're getting to a point in time where, I mean, my last year was 1998. I don't really even know what Junior's last year was, but the time is going away from those days. And certainly when Senior was extremely impactful into the organization of the Orioles, a lot of those impactful days revolved around Dad in the minor leagues when Earl Weaver was the manager up in Baltimore. So the players that came up through back then for the Oriole way, if you will, Senior touched them in the minor leagues, and it was decades ago. So the fact that we can have this opportunity now to talk about number 7, I think is pretty cool. I really do, because as you said, his meaningfulness to your dad, to me, therefore a trickle-down effect to you, to my family. It's never going to go away, but this is just going to be one more opportunity for me to get to talk about it when I don't have to force the issue.
I think that's a great point of it. And you're right. We don't look at it that way. And I actually remember it was 2001 for my dad was his last year. And I was, I guess, just turned 8. I had blonde hair at the time and a lot more hair. And now I'm the Ripken genes.
Now you got the line. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. And that's why we might look a lot more in common here. We talked and joked about it that people mistake me as being your son, but it depends on the lighting, depends on the picture, right? But I just love the fact it's times change, but you want to be able to find other reasons to talk about people that you care about. And this is just another way why a legacy of a player with Jackson can grow and the legacy of Cal Sr. can continue to live on. And I'm glad. I kept telling people no one was going to trade Jackson, by the way. And that was, you got to look at, if you believe in a guy and the Orioles believe in a guy, you're not trading him at the deadline, no doubt about it. So speaking kind of the deadline, let's switch gears here for a second. It's way different now with a lot of sellers and a lot more teams that are in the mix because of the playoff situation. And some people, it never felt like every fan base is happy with the moves, that the people felt that you gave up too much or you didn't get the right player. I guess I'll just ask you, was there anything in this deadline that truly surprised you or with the team or with the move? Because the example I'll throw out here initially, Kikuchi for going from the Toronto Blue Jays to the Astros, a little bit of a haul. Tanner Scott is a rental, a little bit of a haul here. But that's how the market was set. So again, is there a surprise from you, at least on this case, or did you kind of expect it?
You know what? When they changed the rules and there was only one deadline, I thought that it was going to create more activity, which it did. There were some cases where I'm thinking that if teams didn't do anything, I think we can look back, because history says a lot. Recent history says a lot on what people think, to me. And last year, you had 2 wildcard teams in the D-backs and the Rangers to go to the World Series. And I think there are a lot of teams out there in baseball right now that if the season were over today, they would say we're in the playoffs and we could be dangerous. And then the team that's next to them would says we could be dangerous. And I think those are the type of teams that don't do anything. And then there's some teams in there that think, yes, we could be dangerous, but this would really help us. And if we have to mortgage a little bit of my future, I don't want to mortgage the whole thing, but if I have to mortgage a little bit to maybe jump my odds up a little bit and go get a guy at the back end of a game, or go get me a starter that might be able to elevate my position in the postseason until that gets here, because I didn't think any starting pitcher that was moved that I see going to line up with anybody else's number one. They might line up in the 3 spot, so you might get one start out of them in a small series. But I think this playoff setup, the way it is now that we have the extra wild card team in, the way the D-backs and the Rangers ran through the postseason last year, these teams are sitting there going, wait a minute, everybody's got a shot, and I got just as much of a shot as they do, and I don't have to mortgage my future. So let me go out there and make maybe a subtle move and see what happens. But if I get in and I get a break, next thing you know, I win a series. And if I'm in that series and I get a break, I'm in the next series. And the next thing you know, you're in the World Series. So I think the way it's set up and the way it's structured, nothing really surprised me about the moves. I do think now the mindset of some of these new front offices that have happened over the past 3, 4, 5 years, they do treat it a little bit more maybe like a fantasy baseball program. And not afraid to move button A to get button B,
right,
and things like that. Because I thought in yesteryear there were some more maybe thought processes of like, I have some conviction on my team. Yeah. Now it seems like I have conviction, I make a move, but my conviction might alter again. If it's not panning out for me, I'll make another move. So I think there's a situation where the trade deadline, I love the fact that they just made one. Because I do like the activity, and I do think that everybody generates more interest around the baseball world. But think about it, when you have all these radio stations around the 30 teams, now some of the cities have 2 teams, I get that. But your A block and your B block of your radio show dominate the trade deadline. And then it switches over to basketball and football, which I know we fight that all the time. But I think it's pretty cool the way the deadline works, but nothing really shocked me on this one.
Yeah, well, it was funny actually. I'll say I got a couple hints of certain moves. One with Chicago with the White Sox ahead of time, but I'm not in the news to break news, Bill. Right, my relationships matter too much. But we were live, and I got a text about Eloy Jimenez coming to the Orioles, and I'll just say that my facial expression. I wasn't a good poker player. Now I didn't say what happened. But, you know, people make moves, and that's just the way it was. But the point was, it was exciting to see a lot of things develop. And
so you didn't bait
like
anybody and say, I got news that there's a Chicago White Sox guy coming in, might be Crochet. You didn't do that?
No. Well, I didn't say a word, and my other members of my team,
right.
I let one guy, Zach, he just went down a rabbit hole. He goes, oh my God, Jackson Holliday's gone. Just tell me. And I go, I didn't say anything. I didn't say a word for 5 minutes. And then the news came out about it. It's not me. I mean, look, I even knew about, when Kyle Bradish went down, that was something actually his offseason. You know, Kyle's my former teammate. You know, right. I got too much. I care about them doing well. I just like to know just to know, right? Just it gives me perspective. So, yes, mum was the word. But with all the moves now, and I'm curious, because I would take out the Orioles here. Orioles, young, talented team. We know they're going to be in the hunt. Is there a team that made a move at this deadline that you might think is a dark horse? Let's start with the American League that you think is, well, damn, they could be in a really good spot here as they push towards a postseason berth.
I don't think so, Ryan. I think that goes back to what I was saying with the way these front offices are thinking. There wasn't that, there wasn't the Juan Soto deal, going somewhere. There wasn't a name like that. I know you said, hit maybe everybody, but Eflin's deal, I think, was pretty good.
Yeah, I agree.
You're bringing in a dude that knows how to pitch, that's been in the American League East, that's been in the National League East. He understands what that's all about. And I think when you bring him in, because you know this, right? We pick up a nugget or two from everybody we come across in the game. And if Eflin can pass a nugget along to somebody else, Grayson Rodriguez, for example, but Eflin also picks up a nugget or two from Burns. Now all of a sudden we got this little bit of mojo working in that category. So I like the Orioles moves. The Eloy Jimenez move, I didn't quite understand. And once again, I'm not in the room, not sitting there talking about it, but kind of scratched my head a little bit on that one. to say, okay, where does that fit? That was my initial thought process. But when you go get a guy like Eflin, and granted his numbers necessarily weren't the top of the world, but something goes right, and certainly his first outing showed that he can do it because he did it. But I like those ideas of bringing in somebody like that. Might be a little bit, because that's a dark horse kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And if next thing you know, he pitches the game 2 in a playoff series, I'm not trying to slight Grayson Rodriguez in any means, but it might line up if he's pitching well down the stretch to have that kind of veteran presence go out there and follow Burns. I mean, it's possible you're staring at a 2-0 in favor, and Grayson goes out there and shoves, and the next thing you know, that's 3 and out. And some team's going home and Baltimore's advancing. So I think if there was a dark horse, I think Eflin might be the one.
I like that. You know what? I told people this year, because everyone's going, you got to go get the ace, go get Scooble, go get Crochet. That's what's going to put you over the top. And I look back to last year. Max Scherzer was the big move. So same thing with Justin Verlander. But the one that actually made the biggest impact for the Texas Rangers was Jordan Montgomery, and then who they already had with Nathan Eovaldi, where those are guys. So it's this year it was, can Zach Eflin, could Jack Flaherty, could any of those other, I'm not going to say they're secondary pitchers, but are one of those guys, is their game going to be elevated that's going to put your team over the top? So we're on
that's a good call on Jordan Montgomery too. And it just shows you like how volatile sometimes the pitching world can be. Because what he was able to do last year, he didn't have a job this spring. And then he ends up like having to go somewhere else and is not necessarily pitched that well when he's been out there on the bump. So that is one of those things that you find a guy when he's throwing well. And, I think Eflin was getting it going, and that falls back into that same category of now's the time to bring Jackson Holliday back to the big leagues because he was swinging well down there. So make the move when somebody's hot, feeling good about themselves. And if Eflin can run the table out, plus you got him for next year, which I think is a pretty good one. And the Rogers deal to the Marlins, I know you gave up a couple players, but I don't think they were necessarily in your plans. So if they go to Miami and they play 12 years in the big leagues and rake, tip your hat to them and congratulate them and say, you know what, we knew that was in there somewhere. We just didn't have the chance to give you that opportunity. But Rogers under control through 2026. And I think you got to go back, maybe look 3 years ago where Rogers was really good. Because he was pitching in with a 2 ERA of some sort, 2 point something. But he hasn't necessarily found that. But a 6'5" lefty that can go out there on the bump, and if he finds something and gets one of those nuggets from somebody else, you might have something nice.
Yeah, and also he dealt with a lot of injuries in 2023 as well. So it's, you feel good in your All-Star year, you get humbled, and then you're injured, and then here you are trying to find it. And I'm glad you're saying this. People think I'm crazy, and maybe I am. Maybe I'm a little nuts.
Oh, you're gonna have people letting you know that I'm nuts too, so it's okay.
Well, obviously, yes. I mean, it runs in the family there. But, the point is, it's so unpredictable with pitchers nowadays, and you don't know where it's going to turn into or what's going to develop. And pitchers nowadays, the arm injuries are going to be so high. That's just the nature of the beast of it. But guys can find themselves becoming all-star caliber pitchers into their 30s now. I mean, Seth Lugo is a perfect example for the Royals, where you're going, he's getting what money going into this year? Who the hell is this guy? And damn, he's pretty damn good. And I think that's the part where that was what the Royals were hoping, but that wasn't the expectation from the exact world. So it's a little bit of patience. Guys can figure it out. I thought you were maybe going to say the Royals, because I know you love Bobby Witt Jr. and I know you love what's going on. So I was just curious. And right now, Bobby Witt Jr. can't get out, by the way. I don't know.
Is he the front runner right now for the MVP?
Okay, so this is a perfect. Okay, so that's where I was going to go with this. Aaron Judge, it's death taxes, and Judge's going to hit the shit out of the ball. You seem like you can't get him out.
Right.
But then you also can't get Bobby Witt Jr. out. And I thought Gunnar Henderson for a while was right on track with both of them.
Right.
And I thought, so with those three guys, you think Bobby Witt Jr. now is overtaken Judge for the top spot?
I mean, as it's playing right now, I don't think there's any question about that. And look, where I'm going to side on the positional responsibility and value of a shortstop over everybody else. And if anything's even close, The tiebreaker is a big tiebreaker. The fact that Bobby Witt goes out there and plays shortstop every single day for the Royals. So what he's able to do, how comfortable he looked in that All-Star game home run derby when he's going out there and taking Teoscar to the limits on that one. But this dude, there's not a thing that he can't do on the baseball field. You've heard the terms enough being around the game and seeing guys in the minor leagues you played with, called 5-tool players. I think it was one of the more overused terms ever, the 5-tool player, because I always said, yeah, he can run, he can hit a little bit, he can play some defense, and he's got a hammer and a screwdriver in his pocket. Those are the other two tools to make it up. Bobby Witt, legit, is a complete 5-tool player. If you're looking at all the measurements that they keep in the game right now, I think he's the fastest player when he's running, maybe said home to third on a triple. He can steal bases. He can play D. He can hit home runs. He can hit for average. Anything you want out of a player, you got in Bobby Witt. And right now, the way he's playing, and I know that Gunnar had a little bit of layoff because I was wrestling early in the year, like the first 2 months in, I was very stubborn on Gunnar. This is my guy, this is my guy, this is my guy, this is my guy. But Bobby has gotten so hot that if the season was over today and he didn't win the MVP, I would be absolutely shocked.
You know what? And for people that are wondering how good Bobby Witt Jr. has been, we're aware. But for those that are listening to this, Bobby Witt Jr.'s got 19 jacks, 76 ribbies, has an OPS of 992. I don't really always look to the OPS, but people like to look at that.
Sure.
He's got 24 bags. And by the way, he's hitting 349.
Which
and
still means something.
I'm with you on that. Don't get me going with this, Bill.
So let me ask you
Okay.
this question while you're pulling up numbers and everything.
Yep.
We'll have a production meeting on air.
Yep, let's do it.
So 19 homers in 76 stakes. 76?
Yep, 76 and 91 runs scored.
How many?
91.
Okay. And Aaron Judge has how many homers and how many ribbies when you pull up Judge?
Well, let's do it right now. A little hey, how you doing? And a little hey, how you doing for Judge, which, again, great player. He's got 39 jacks, 99 ribbies. He has scored 84 times and is hitting 316. And if we're going to go to the OPS, he leads all of baseball with over 1,100. It's 1,136 or 1 point, whatever it is.
So he's got 39.99?
39.99.
Yeah, I ain't
Great
mad
deal.
at that either. And ask, and sometimes when you look and, the number people will tell you that RBIs really aren't a real stat because it's, club dependent and other things like that. You still got to score runs to win games.
Yep.
And if you look at RBIs and you look at runs scored, that's directly impacting your club's chances to win games. But the fact that Bobby, and that's a pretty good pace right there, because I'm a little bit surprised at the 99 ribbies. Sorry, I've been out of commission for a couple of weeks because, 39 is 20 more than Bobby Witt.
Yep.
And is 23 ribby more is than Bobby Witt.
Yeah.
But you can actually directly attribute those to home runs. You know what I mean? Like he's driving in himself with those 20 extra ones. So I've always enjoyed being around the players. I think the one year I was in Texas, my man Rusty Greer had 18 homers and 101 ribbies on the year. And I looked at him as one of the best hitters I've ever seen because there were guys at the time hitting 40 home runs and driving in 90. Well, they were driving themselves in 40 of those 90. So that means they only picked up 50 other ones, when people were out there on base. And my man Rusty Greer's driving in 101 with 18 homers.
Yeah.
So he knew how to hit. He knew what it meant to maybe bear down a little bit more with that man on second and 2 outs. And he was finding a way to get a lousy knock, to drive in those runs. So we can look at all of the numbers, and I want to look at all of the numbers. But I'm telling you, when it's all said and done, the tried and true measurements that this history of the game has, it's still real.
Yeah. And you know what? And I know I'm being conscious of your time, but if you don't mind, maybe 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes. Because I think this is, give a little sip, take a little breath for a second. Let me elaborate on what you discussed. Those things matter. You gotta get on and you gotta get in. And some people have different roles of how they do that. That's another player that comes to my mind that isn't talked about a lot. but has been driving in runs for years. That's Jose Ramirez on the Guardians, where he might not always have that sexy high average and he's not hitting 30, 40 jacks, even though he's having a fantastic year. The dude knows how to produce. And when you talk to people in that locker room, had some players on around Cleveland, they go, dude, he's everything to us because in every moment we need something, he's got it. He's got to get on base. He's got to drive a guy in. Jose's our guy. That matters. Doing the little things matters in the game. And that's something that I know you really
I'll give you a little bit
about.
of foreshadow since you're probably going to run this show out when the Orioles are actually in Cleveland and they're saying Jose Ramirez do this.
Okay.
He is the best, least talked about player.
Thank you.
In the game.
Thank you.
He posts every single day. He goes out there and switch hits. But like you were talking about, there's something about him that you can't measure, you can't describe. And even if you did, I'm going to go out there on a guess and ask your viewers that even like to look at numbers themselves. Go back and look at the last 6 years, maybe 7 years. Jose Ramirez, and compare him to everybody else that we Judge, Trout when he was healthy and everything else. I'm not saying he put up their numbers, but at the end of the 6 or 7 year mark, he might be in the top 5 players in the American League when you did that over the 6 or 7 year span. It's unbelievable what he does. My favorite stat about him to watch this year, this series maybe coming up, maybe the Oriole fans out there don't want to see this happen during this 4-game set, is he has 2 10-pitch at-bat home runs this year, and he has a third at-bat that was a 12-pitch at-bat that he hits a grand slam on. And to me, the thing that I take away from that is in order to get to a 10-pitch at bat, you got to spoil 2 strike pitches. And when you go 3-2 count, you're probably fouling off multiple 3-2 pitches before you get the cookie that you want, and then you unleash on it. But he's got 3 home runs this year that are 10-pitch or more, but 2 of the at-bats are 10 pitches, and then the 12-pitch at-bat's a grand slam that a dude, he wore him down. And my man spun a Frisbee up there, and Jose racks it out there into the right field bleachers and runs around the base. It's kind of comical when you look at him out on a baseball field in his uni, but the man posts every day, and he knows how to play, period.
Yep, and here's a good example to drive home the point. And how can you drive in and you post every day? You got to be available. You got to play. And since he missed in 2020, I guess that was the COVID year, I'll go back to here. Since 2016, Bill played 152, following year 152, 157, 129, 2021, 152 games, 157, 156 last year, and now he has 104. And meanwhile, he's on pace for in the last 4 seasons, his 3rd 100-plus RBI season. The dude just plays. The dude is unbelievable. He can rake, and he brings it. This is why I wanted to have you on for a little bit longer, because and then we'll get to the Cal Senior story, because I would love to hear that. But I know you love the infield play specifically. One thing that's been happening recently in Baltimore, and Junior and I, we've talked about it with Gunnar. Gunnar is freakishly talented. He can go and make any play there is, but it seems like right now he's making a lot more mistakes on the routine plays, whether he's trying to charge in too early where he doesn't necessarily got to be all sped up, or maybe it's taking an extra step to get his body in rhythm. What would you attribute that as playing up the middle? You know it better than anybody on that. And so with a guy like Gunnar that's making these mistakes, is this more on the mental side? Is it fatigue? Or what would you think on the recent struggles? I'm not worried about him long term, but I think it's just good to discuss.
Yeah, I'm not worried about him at all either. Look, it's almost in one way or another, this game of baseball, it finds a way to be cruel to you every now and then. And it seems that when you get into a little bit of a funk or a little bit of a bad spell, if mostly we see this at the plate, you're up at home plate, you're in a bad spell, you take a first pitch, it's a ball, it's off the plate, down and away. And Mr. Umpire says, no, it's a strike. So now you're 0-1. Then you're sitting there horse cussing yourself and him. And then the next pitch, you get a hanger and you foul it straight back, and now you're 0-2. And you're in that mess. And I think right now with Gunnar, there's a lot racing through his head. And you know this, Ryan, when you're struggling at the plate, you not only have one hitting coach that's there, but you have another one. And then there's somebody on the outskirts, and then you go get a sandwich at the deli, and the deli man tells you that your stance looks weird.
Yep.
And then somebody else says something to you, and then somebody else says something to you. There's not a way that you can't, not think about what's going on.
Right.
And I think defensively, the way this game is played now, with so many people involved in the confines of the dugout and the clubhouse, a little hand grenade in from the side doesn't help. Maybe you ought to do this. So-and-so does this or so, whatever. I think some way you go out there and you play a clean game in the field. You find your routine to go out there and do your ground balls every single day and have your routine, and you keep working through it. And I know you wanted to hear some more stuff about Senior. Senior would say, nobody's going to feel sorry for you, son. He goes, go out there and kick yourself in the ass and go get it. and it's kind of what you have to do to get through these things. Because you said this, the talent is there. There's not a play on the field that he cannot make. And when you have that ability, everything else will take care of itself. And I think you just need to go out there and play one clean. You might sit in your locker after the game, take a little bit of a deep breath. The next game goes through. And then before you know it, you're 2 weeks in and you don't have one of those tweeners. You don't want to have one of those difficult ones. The miscommunication on the fly ball the other night, you had two guys standing there. I mean, those things seem to just compound into the situation. And sometimes you just gotta take a break, take a breather, get through one game clean, keep working as you do. But the only way to get out of it is you go out there and you find more at bats. You go take your ground balls. You do everything that you've always done, and baseball and your talent are going to end up righting the ship eventually anyway.
I think it's a good reminder, because everyone so far, they think it's a reaction, that it's going to be, you got to be on all the time. You're going to make mistakes. The best players in the world. And you can see that a little bit, but I think it's great when you have other people in your head too, or someone makes a comment. I know. So, it's funny. One of the funniest things when I learned this lesson, I was worrying about where my hands would be all the time, right? Hidden. And I remember Junior told me when he was hot one time, he was at second base and the shortstop, I forget which team, went, hey, Cal, you're swinging it really well. Like,
you look great with your hands there.
Exactly.
I know the story.
Yeah. And then, of course, what's he thinking about next time up? Oh, my hands were out here a little bit further. And what's he do? He strikes out.
He forgets about the baseball, which is what he forgot about. Because, I feel good like a strike.
There it is.
Yeah.
Just that quickly it can change. So I love that. Okay, now's a good time then, because you mentioned Senior. We'll start wrapping up. One of your favorite Senior moments that you had throughout your, if it's going to be lifetime playing, just because do me this favor, because I love to hear these stories.
Yeah. I hit on it a little bit when I was talking about when he pointed at me and said, "You're not him." Mm-hmm. He was so real, because here's what we've said before. Me and Junior both have said this about Senior. There might have been a coach in the big leagues, and I'm not saying that there are. Let's just say that. I'll be positive on that side. That knew specifics about hitting, infield play, pitching, more so than Senior. But we've never, and I'm not kidding you, never come across anybody in the game that knew more about the entire game and could help the entire squad more than what Senior could have done. And I go back to some of those years that I was talking about where Dad was impacting some of the future, Oriole players. And, Aberdeen, South Dakota, back in 1964, when Mom's up there with three of my siblings, and me was in her belly during the summer of Aberdeen, South Dakota. But I believe Andy Etchebarren was catcher, Mark Belanger was the shortstop, and Jim Palmer was a pitcher. And you have three different cats right? Doing 3 different things on your squad, and no one was more capable of being able to help them in order, to get to the big leagues. And then I can move on from that further, and we go to Asheville, North Carolina. And I do remember some of those days because I was 7, 8, and 9 years old, those 3 years in Asheville. But you have an Al Bunbury, you have a Rich Dower, and here's a guy that can help the second baseman, can help the center fielder that's a leadoff guy hitting left-handed. And the way he could pinpoint things and know kind of instinctively or just intuitively what that person needs to do to make it to the next level was cool. And then, the Orioles at the big league level, you got Eddie Murray, a switch hitting first baseman. Obviously he's helped Junior throughout his life, but then you've got a shortstop that plays every day. Then you've got Rick Dempsey playing, every day. The dynamic that he was able to see and what he was able to do and what he was able to focus on. And back then it was so different because those 3 years in Asheville, North Carolina that I remember the most, he was the manager. He was the third base coach as well. There was a pitching coach with him. I don't remember another coach there. I don't remember a roving hitting instructor coming through. There certainly wasn't a hitting instructor riveted there.
Yep.
There wasn't a first base coach there because the pitchers would go out and do that. The pitchers charting the game the night before, their pitch. And then the other guy was charting the other team because he's pitching in 2 nights. And they are at the top step of the dugout, side by side with the clipboard and the chart. Yes, the old school pencil and the chart. And they're watching every pitch and they go, slider rip? And he's, nah, bad, hard change up. And all right, and he write it down. And then there's something happened in the game, and Senior would look at the guy and go, did you see that? Because it's how this guy just attacked that guy. The learning that went on real time, I don't think necessarily happens that way anymore. And there wasn't 75 different people that were going through that situation. But the way the minor leagues were set up then, when Dad was pushing, Mike Flanagan and Jim Palmer and Al Bunbury and Eddie Murray and Rich Dower all up to the big leagues, he was in charge of that. Yeah. It was his job to make those guys better and make those guys come up to the big leagues. So when Earl asked them to do something, they knew exactly what they were supposed to do. And I think those days are far few between. And I will say one thing, that when we grow up and we pick up nuggets, I remember when I was 9, I think it was 9, Dad was talking to Rich Dower about turning a double play. I'm out there on the field just running around in my little bat boy uni. I heard everything he said. None of it went in here. I was 15 years old in a high school game. And I had total 100% recall of that conversation Dad had with Rich Dower, that it registered to me and I got it. And some light switch flipped at that time. So, being around him at those young ages and being out there on the baseball field, we had that luxury to be able to do that. And I think some of the stuff that I absorbed through osmosis was there. And then that one time that I can have total recall of a conversation that he was having with this guy at a USC, a hotshot second baseman coming out into Double-A. And I remember the conversation that meant nothing to me at the time, that mattered everything to me 6 years later when I could actually apply it to myself.
I think that's what I love to hear. And actually I had a moment, where maybe not that, just that, but it's at those situations, this is flashing back for me. My dad and I are on the field practicing, and of course he's heard all the things, but all of a sudden Dad's explaining to me, or Junior on this one. And all of a sudden he stops and he looks up and he smiles and shakes his head. I go, what? Did I mess something up? Did I do something? He goes, no, that's exactly something that Senior said to me when I was your age. And now the light bulb went off for him now, telling me in that. And it was a cool moment. So hearing all that, this is why I love it. I love it. It's great. And I hope to hear a lot more. And a lot of these guys that come up to me and say this about the Senior, but they got to ask you, because you and Junior had the most experiences, especially on the professional side, that that are awesome moments to live through. But all right, Bill, I appreciate you. I've kept you long enough. I mean, I'll bother you more and more. You know, I got to ask you on stupid things in the future about like what you eat on a hot dog.
I'm simple. I do ketchup.
That easy. I just go plain. I think that's fine too.
Well, then that's pretty easy, right? No,
well, but that's
ketchup.
Your ketchup. Okay, that's easy. That's easy. Yeah, I didn't want to bother you with that. One thing I just have to. We might even cut this part out. But I don't need to know about the baseball card story. I've heard that enough. I've grown up with that. Do you see they made a card after it with Jackson? Did they do that? Did they do that?
Fun face.
Fun face. A little spin off there for you.
I might actually do something with that group coming in. There might be a way to have Jackson and my autograph on the same card. I don't know.
Oh,
that remains to be seen. We'll see.
We'll see what happens.
I'll leak it on your show.
That'd be great if you could do that, but only if I'm allowed. Hey, the mum's the word over here. Trades go down.
I know you already proved that.
Yeah, relationships matter more. But Bill, Uncle Bill, I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time, and I'll be sure to bother you soon.
Well, when are you going to hit me up again? Right before the playoffs start?
I mean, I don't know. I'll probably hit you up after this just to catch up and talk about.
Well, I know that, but I mean on this show again.
Whenever you want.
I mean, if you got so many people lined up, you don't need me. I'll be good.
Well, I mean, you're available, but I mean, I could bother you once a month. I could bother. You tell me your schedule.
Before the playoffs start, I want you to hit me up again on your show.
Okay, deal.
And we'll see where we sit.